And we are live. Good time of day to you all, folks. It is Sunday, July the 5th, so that means it's stream time. First, let's check the news real quick. I've got what's up with... Okay, so pre-order this Sunday is a new 40k starter sets, which is fine. Don't worry, we'll still do the video. Mitchell's out this week, so I gotta do this one by myself, which I'll do later. But starter set, introductory set, miniatures and paint sets, getting started sets, which are the really big ones. I got a feeling these won't be around that long. And then a few Black Library things. So, yeah, all good stuff. My wallet's safe, because the only thing I was really worried about was, or the only thing I really wanted, was the terrain sets. And that looks like that's not coming. So, let's get to painting. Figured we pop in and see what's new there, just to see. Now, as far as what's on our painting desk, what we have is... tiles. Coming up on the end of them. So we've got our Zone Mortalis tiles here. And today, we've done this once before on the stream. And today, sorry, as I lean over. Today we're going to do it again. We're going to weather these. So lots of pigments and contrast washes today. Always a fun time. Need my sponge to start because... Oh, not that one. And not that one either. Oops, looks like I've used up all my small sponge brushes. That's fine. Chase Watermelon, you... Hello. Chase Waterman, not Watermelon, sorry. Now I got a watermelon. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do, of course, is... Spong, and some Rhinox hide. Good old-fashioned Rhinox hide. Let's do a little bit of dabbing and chip weathering. Let me see. And they're hearing. Oh, did I blow out the mic or something like that? I apologize. That is the case. Where'd my scoop brush go? Yeah, there we go. Where's my crappy brush? Original Chase. Oh yeah, I know that's you. I just can't say words correctly. Do. All right. Get a nice healthy dose of Rhinox hide. With which to sponge weather our little tile here. Now we're going to use the whole darn thing. I'm just going to tear off bits and pieces to use appropriately. Okay. I guess that's what we're kind of going for, is this kind of random weathering. I've had fun doing these tiles, but I'm excited to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Because I've been working on them for an awful long time. Alright. So, you can tell... you can tell the spots where I didn't really bother cleaning it up, because there's going to be the, where the walls are. And I'm not going to worry about those, but... Oops. There we go, let's... really sponge up our yellows here. More than anything else because the contrast shows up nicely on the yellow. So it's a good place to do our sponge weathering. There's also an opportunity to any splash over bits that didn't get caught by the bits that didn't get caught by the enamel wash. This is our chance. Daniel Grouse, hello. Look, if you're getting sick of terrain, I don't think adding light up tunnels will help. I'm not adding light up tunnels. What are you talking about? Hey, you guys remember the Hyperloop? Remember how that was totally going to be a thing? Sorry, you said light up tunnels, and that's what I thought of. Too much there, too much there. So we'll just have to go all in on making that one nice and warm. It is, in Vegas, technically. That's a perfect city for it. Vegas, where bad ideas go to die. Let's see, get off most of the brush there. There we go. There's bits of brown everywhere. Now, if I was trying to get this done most efficiently, I would probably do this, all of my tiles with this and then everything else, but I think that might result in a stream where I am doing nothing but slapping sponge on brown for 2 hours, and that wouldn't be terribly interesting. So, what I'll probably do is use up the brown paint I've got and then swap to a different technique. You know, have some fun with it, because at the end of the day, that is what we're doing, right? We're supposed to be doing, having fun. If you're in the States, I hope you had a safe 4th of July weekend and okay, I think I'm almost done here. Yep, not every tile needs some. In fact, you shouldn't have it on every square, I mean. I guess you could just say not every tile needs this. I don't have to do this on every tile.
I don't know.
Oh, did I lose audio? I apologize if I did. I just realized my thing was blooping at me. Let me know if I'm not coming through. Sometimes my microphone likes to disconnect randomly for no good reason. Looks like I need a little more brown just to finish this out. That's okay, we'll just grab a little bit. Can we get out there on the palette? What kind of sponge you got there? I got these really cheap sponge brushes from the hardware store, and then I'm tearing them to bits. You can also use like packaging foam if you buy metal models. This is the stuff that comes in that. But I just bought this bulk pack of cheap sponge brushes at the hardware store because they were like $1. 1 second, folks. My audio is telling me that it's disconnecting and reconnecting constantly. Hello, Luca. What is with my audio? Is it? Hello, hello. Okay, come on. My audio fine to you guys? Because it keeps telling me it's disconnecting and stuff like that. But I'm not noticing anything. Anyway, did I ever say hello, Luca? I think I did. Neat technique, thank you. I did not come up with it. It's a common one, but good. How was the spillage piece? Still working on it. We got our base green down. But I want to wrap these up before I deal with that, because honestly, these have been sitting on my desk for too long, and I really should finish one thing at a time. You know. Pretend I have a little bit of discipline. There we go. There's a second device on the fringe of connectivity, which is weird because I don't have any other microphones plugged in. At least I shouldn't. Connect to the phone with some music. Yeah, I don't have anything else connected. I tweaked all the cables, so hopefully that'll help. I have, yeah, no idea. So if my audio does go off, please let me know. Scream at me in the comments so I can diagnose and repair as soon as possible. Oop. A little heavy-handed there. I know my head's on camera. Yeah, I don't have any Bluetooth devices at all connected to my computer right now. Alright, there we go. I have another microphone plugged in Windows. You want to use microphones in the game controller, right? My game controller's not even plugged in. Can't even be that. Alright. So I don't go bored just doing this. We'll do 2 tiles at a time. So we're going to batch paint 2 of these at a time. Mostly just for some variety. And I find that going through all 8, I get bored. But 2 is a nice number. So let's go back to this one. Now, next step is another really fun step. Pigments, pigments, pigments. Playing with pigments. Get our crappiest brush. Crappiest brush is, because I'm going to wreck it. I'm going to ruin these brushes. Like an anime fan on prom night. Remember that? What was it, Mighty Number 9? Alright, so we've got our pigments. We've got our rusty pigment. We've got our black pigment. We've got our lighter pigments. I'm probably not going to use that. That would never stop Windows. Yeah, that's fair. Windows, I don't have a game controller. Yeah, we know. So you want to use it for the microphone, right? Well, no, I don't have one plugged in. I heard you, but here's what happened. You told me you didn't want to use it, so I used it anyway. Okay. Although, we can get out a little pigment here, get out some rust. Get out some natural umber, opposed to unnatural umber. And some carbon black. I feel like I should look into other pigment colors. They're gotta be out there. I just haven't really dug around. I mean, there's greens, but I'm not dealing with greens in the Underhive. Not here, anyway. When I get to the slime tile, different story. All right. Grab our crappy. So, of course, everyone remembers number 9. The site, the 3DS pre-orders only got canceled last year. Did they really? That's great. All right. Whoop. Okay, note to self. Don't do your pigment moving over your tile because you'll spill things on the tile. So now I gotta, oh well. All right, so now we've got some reds, and let's pick some spots and really work it in. Rub it in, rub it in. Of course, with the pigments go in the recesses more than anything else, but it's a little too red here, so we'll take some of this and bring it. Well, we're working left from right because I'm right-handed, so I'll go this way so I don't put my hand in the... This is all varnished, so I'm not particularly worried about bringing up any of the paint. Oh, well. It was varnished, and then I put an enamel wash on it. Enamel washes are actually fairly durable. So, really get that rusted. That's very bright now, but of course we'll dial that back in later with some contrast paints. Again, not every square needs everything, so just kind of... This is always the hardest part for me, is being random, right? Because humans don't like to be random, actually. We like patterns and stuff, but then patterns don't look natural. They look like they're made by humans. So. And, probably could go with the idea that less is more. So I'm just going to pick some of the spots where I put down some extra heavy weathering. So what's everyone else been up to lately? Anybody doing anything fun or interesting? Hobby or otherwise? In addition to hobbying, I've been continuing to play way too much Satisfactory, because I'm a hopeless addict. And I'm trying to clear these tiles off, so A, I can get to the walls part, which I, full disclosure, do not know how I'm going to do yet. And then B, I want to get to some 40k stuff, because I've still got a guard army I want to paint. Will be on my project for later today, but of course with Mitchell out, I've got to record the Sunday rundown by myself, which is fine. It's not going to be edited as well because I can't get to the game shop not game shop, the studio to do the actual editing, so it'll be just kind of a quick record video, which is fine. If it was a Necromunda release day, I would I would find a way, but with just the 40k starter sets, it's like, All right, I think we got enough red. Let's take some browns and then mix in some of those with some of those reds to desaturate our reds. go. So now we mix in the browns. So basically this brown is kind of serving as an older rust. The red is fresh rust, and then the brown is like, well, that rust has aged, you know. Because it's been there a while. That is the cool thing about pigments, is you can layer them and mix them to your heart's content. Probably means I should have done the brown first and then put the red on top of it, but oh well. Let's pick some other spots where the red wasn't, and put some browns there. More down here. Make sure you spread across the tiles. What you don't want to do is have it only be tile-based weathering, right? Where every tile has its own ecosystem. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Not at this scale, anyway. So we want to make sure the... Now, it's kind of hard, like in this case, the reason some of these tiles are unpainted is because that's where the walls are going. In that case, that does create miniature ecosystems, right? Like of water and other things like that. All right, and then our black, which we're going to be very sparing on because the black is very strong. But it's great for darkening. Getting in here where I want there to be a darker pigmenting. Okay. Really working it in there. The black can either be, you know, just that rust and that grime that is so old it has just turned black with age, or can also be carbon scoring, which we talked about before. And carbon scoring you have to do a little differently than... So like right here, that's just, you know, shadowing, right? We can put some around. And... There we go. There we go. So now even in our most pristine tiles, we've got some... I have to vacuum my desk after this. I always end up having to vacuum my desk after this because, yeah, I'm just like putting around a lot of pigment powders. Not all of it which is ending up on the piece. There we go. Work that in there. Oops, that was way too much. That's okay. We'll come back and fix that. Get. By poking it in and then picking it up and working it around. Now, if you want to really work it in, you can use a harder bristled like thing. So like a they make those hobby, not Q-tips, but little hobby applicators that are basically foam. You can use those. You can even use a metal tool if you want to. You just gotta be careful not to scratch your paint. Sorry, I can't talk. There we go. Lots of goop and yuck. Get some down here. I feel like we're neglected down here. I know it's off camera, you guys can't see, but just why I'm kind of neglecting it. I need a bigger desk. I do need a bigger desk. I also need a more stable desk. This is one of those white tables. Those folding tables. Not great for stability for camera, which is why when I go wobble, 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 everything moves. All right. There's that one. Lots of color on it. Swap to the others. I'm going to try reverse order this time. I'm going to try putting some black down first. And then the brown, and then we'll end with rust. I don't know if I'm going to like that better. I have a feeling I won't. Just really get this all. Put a big splotch of black. Think of the macro, not the micro. So. Okay. Slop, slop, slop. Of course, I timed my groceries poorly this week and ran out of food just as 4th of July hit, so everything was closed. So I couldn't go grocery shopping yesterday, so I gotta do that today. So today I've just eaten waffles. So, which is, you know, there are worse things to be filled with than waffles. It's up there as far as the overlap between foods that are fun to eat and fun to say. Waffles and falafels kind of taking that crown. And, almost out of black pigment, which is good. I want to kind of want to run out of black pigment. Let's do some down here where that is. Some down here where that is. Some down here. Let's do a nice little poke, 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 poke. There we go. Just get a nice carbon scoring mark there, which there aren't as many on the floor. If it's on the floor, it means a grenade went off, right? Gonna have to do a little blast radius thing. All right, now let's go to brown. Might need more brown pigment, actually. Could probably afford to use a bigger brush for this part. Hold on. I mean, falafels are also just good, right? Like, falafels and waffles are both just really good. So that's why they're very high on the fun to say and eat scale. Swapping to a bigger brush here. Like, again, also a really beat-up brush. Oops, that was way too much. Oh, well. We'll use it today. Yes. So you can kind of... I don't know if it's showing up on camera. You kind of see that there's spots where, like this one right here is just not very painted. And that's because all of these already have the wall tiles laid out in a pattern. So, yeah. So, I know where those are going. So I didn't bother to paint those. They still got varnished and stuff, but the plastic glue we used to glue them all down will melt it when we actually go to put it on there, so it'll be okay. There's much more planning. I mean, normally I wouldn't either. But in this case, we talked about it and we were like, okay, do we want to keep our walls modular, or do we want to just like actually just, glue them down and build them to spec? And we realized that like the problem with the modular walls is that then things get really easily knocked around and it's kind of a pain in the butt. I think all of us are scarred by the Into the Dark terrain. Whereas, like, yeah, great idea being able to move it around to infinite possibilities, but in practice, giant pain in the butt because things didn't stick. Okay. The brush size is good. The stiffness of the bristles is not. I think this dry brush I've used so much that it might be on its way out, because... That being said, maybe it just needs a really good conditioning and a really good cleaning. Let's get some over here where I kind of spotched the weathering. Alright, and now some reds. Back to the small brush for this. There we go. Sheer number of times I've bumped the whole bar while playing in the dark. Yeah, exactly. Like, I like the idea a lot, but in practice, it really wasn't something we wanted to emulate with our Zone Mortalis boards. So, we're not. Yeah, see, now I've added too much red over here, so now we need to think about, like, well, why is this all ready? And that's not. So let's add some browns to this red. Desaturate a little. There we go. The red must be used sparingly. I definitely think from now on I'm going to stick to putting the red down first, because desaturating it with the browns really helps color it in. Hello, Duke Moosey. Happy Hangout number 292. Josh has now decided to individually paint the rivets of the Secundus tile in different metallics to represent a rivet shortage. Oh my god. There but for the grace of whatever go I. I like my terrain. I don't like it that much. Okay, get some reds up here. Also use these to pick out. Okay, but have you considered if you spend a small fortune you can have fully magnetized modular walls? I mean, like, we thought about that and decided it wasn't worth it. At least for the Into the Dark stuff. For this stuff, I don't even think, I mean, like, peek behind the curtain. This is already a small fortune of stuff, mostly just possible because of where the channel was and kind of our big 10K. If we had to buy this, if I had to buy this personally, yeah, no. I've really gotten away from magnetizing things. It's just I don't find a joy in it. But that's also because I've kind of really gotten away from like playing competitively, or where the rules change and to being able to magnetize the thing is so very important. Hello, Katie Smith. How are you this fine Sunday? At least I hope it's fine where you are. It's okay here. Not too hot. All right. That's our pigments done for those two tiles. Let's get out the contrast paints. tie all this together. Now, normally I would like put it aside, switch the other tile while this one dried, but this is pigments. There's nothing to, I mean, it's already literally as dry as it can be. Magnetizing was cool until everyone started printing more models. Not wrong, yeah. That's kind of a... Alright, so for our contrast paints, well, do I want to start with contrast or do I want to start with our good old rust wash? Let's start with a good old rust wash. I mean, like, I magnetized my guard tanks. Oops. Spilled water on there. Hey, that works. That's fine. I magnetized my guard tanks back in the day, and that was a giant pain in the butt. I will not be doing that again. Like, screw it. I'll just either play suboptimally or play with people who let me just go, yeah, that's a whatever it is, you know. All right, now this is when we put our wash down. I'm starting here at the bottom where you guys can't see because that way you guys can see when I get up here. Okay, so this rust wash is going to do a couple of things. It's going to... The problem with cheap brushes is that when they fall apart, it doesn't matter, but if they fall apart and leave hairs on your stuff, that is a problem. I really don't want that on the edges. There we go. So, get our rust washes in there. This will A, blend things, and B, set the pigments in place. Which a varnish will do as well, and we will be varnishing these. Let's put some over here, get some again in this whole area here where it just... Really, WYSIWYG is really just an excuse to build more bodies. I mean, yeah, that's how I tend to treat it. But, you know, if you're operating on a pretty tight budget, that does become prohibitive. Okay, there we go. Any spots I missed I want to put some more on. I can get some down here. Some of these tiles as well. Get some over here. Over here is a little neglected. Let's put some over here. Of course, being a wash, it'll go into the recesses, so gotta slop it on there. Watered down a little bit, as you can probably tell. Yeah, when it dries, in some places you can't even see it. Put a wash down. All right. While this is still wet, let's get out our others. I've got Snakebite Leather and Garrigak Sewer and Rattling Grime. Rattling Grime and Garrigak Sewer are very strong. Snakebite and Skeleton Horde, much less so. So let's start with our Skeleton Horde, of which I'm going to need more of. I'm almost out. Oh, because I've been using a ton of it for this stuff. So this is just a nice brown contrast wash, right? Generic ick, I think I've heard it called. WYSIWYG is really an excuse to make a custom las cannon. I mean, yeah, I take WYSIWYG as a cool kit bashing challenge, but I do think there is a very big difference between. And if you, for those of you who don't know, WYSIWYG stands for what you see is what you get, aka does the model physically match what's, what they're supposed to have. And I do think there is a big difference between seeking WYSIWYG in Necromunda or any skirmish game and seeking WYSIWYG in 40k. Just the scale involved, right? Full army-wide kit bashes. I've tried to do them. I never maintained Steam for very long. Okay, just really slopping out the contrast paints everywhere. Again, I'm kind of neglecting this area down here because it's off camera, so it's not interesting for you guys to... Hold on, let me get this down here. I can't quite fit it on my desk. Let's get some snake bite leather. And then last time I did use Rattling Grime and Garagax Sewer. This time I probably won't use those much, if at all. They're very, very dark. Even, like, this Snakebite Leather right here, which is a good paint and all, but... Probably needs to be watered down a little bit. There we go. Feather that out. Again, a little bit here, but we'll kind of slap it down and then take big brushfuls of water to really, like, water it down. So what are we saying? We're saying that there's some kind of big leak right here, right? Maybe this pipe burst. Because there's pipes on all these tiles. Maybe an Ogren died, and this is just, maybe one of the siphoning delegations from the Mercator, the Water Guild. Maybe that guy blew up right here, and just all the little vials of body fluids he was carrying just went, Okay, we do to be careful not to go back and touch the ones that we've done already too much because they will tear, and then that's hard to hide. That one you kind of have to go back to brushwork to hide, which is not really fun, so we'll avoid that. Okay, and then... yeah, I'm going to skip the Garagax Sewer for right now. Well, Garagax Sewer. Sorry for the back of the head shot there. Garagax Sewer, isn't that just Dungeons and Dragons? Hey, da 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 da. Da 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 da. And this stuff is so strong, I'm actually going to put it in my palette and then water it down. Because I know better. There we go. Strong, but watered down. I'm really going for the pipes here. There we go. Look at that. And the watered down version of the vents. And if you wanted to, you could use this as a way to like outline all the vents. If you wanted to do it maybe a little more professionally. I'm not going to, because that will take me forever. There we go. Let's get some of this in here where it's already kind of dark. There we go. Whoops. Just did the thing I said I wasn't going to do and put my hand in the contrast paints. Or my wrist, rather. There we go. Let's get a little bit in here. There we go. Kinda, and then kinda water at the top so it doesn't get too dense. Okay. Some spots over here I could do with a little more grime time. Grime, anyone? Again, you guys can't see this. I know. But it's down here, trust me. All right. So I'm gonna over here. I went a little too harsh on that, and those those lines are a little too present for me. So we're gonna go back to our skeleton horde. Here's what I used to. And we're gonna take some of this, put it in our palette with some water. Kind of do another layer there to see if we can't smooth that transition. Now, don't worry, there's other things I can do to fix that. Was that snake bite? Was that the problem? Might have been snake bite. Yeah, that was snake bite. Okay. Get our snake bite a little bit and then kind of spudge that around. There we go. I wonder if I can take some reds. At this point, I'm just playing around with blending in these colors for more visual interest. You don't want anything just be brown, you know? So right over here, it's getting a little too brown for me. So let's take some of that rust and kind of mix it in. Bubbles are the enemy, though. You don't want bubbles. Bubbles are bad. Also because what happens is that they dry differently, and then the surface tension pops them, and then they leave a weird tide mark. So we don't want bubbles. Okay, all right. Now, before we leave this tile, let's get some of the dry rust we've got and put this in a few choice places. This one is more of an actual paint. I do have some typhus to corrosion I could use too. Alright, dead center. I didn't even think about that, but oh well. Too late. Same thing. We'll really kind of establish this spot as being some kind of patient zero for a bad spill at some point, right? And this is called dry rust, but really it's just like built up rust is what the name of this paint should be. Over here we got some poolage that we want to get rid of. So yeah, this is just going in the recesses and such. Put a little over here. And, you know, take a few spots and put some dabs here and there like this. Around the spots where I had built up some of the browns. And this is where they spilled something nasty as a designated Secundin tile zone. I believe that's called a Superfund site. And we'll just really goop this up here. There we go. That one I should probably let this dry and come back and do another layer. I think I'm poking at it too much and I'm starting to tear up the paint. My impatience gets me again. All right, so before we put on the fresh rust, we will let this dry totally. Okay, so let's set this one aside and go back to the other tile real quick. All right, we're actually going to start with that this time. Spread it out a little bit. Let that texture take its course. Now, obviously, I'm doing this slowly. You could do this as quickly as you wanted to. You don't have to do any of the steps I'm doing. At least not to this extent. So the same thing. Got a lot of buildup over here, so let's add some of this. This is kind of the storytelling of like something spilled here. That's a carbon mark. Well, not really. No, because it's got rust around it, so we can... There we go. That one's more of a carbon scorching mark. Key is to make the shapes irregular, not just round. So although water does form kind of semi-round puddles, it's only on a perfectly flat surface. Where'd it go? There it is. Okay. Again, kind of mask some of our mistakes with the yellow paint here, where I couldn't quite not get it on the edge here. So I'm going to cover that up with some rust. Okay. Now back to the contrast paints. Well, actually, I should probably let that dry just a little bit. Yeah. How about you? Ooh, you're looking good. Okay, so now this is looking nice and dry. Let's go to our last step, which is the rusty orange. This is, of course, you got to be very sparing with, because this is, you know, well, it'll get knocked down a little bit once it dries and once it's matted down. But to start with, it is very, very bright. So we want to really be careful with that. Oops. Again, just put my entire hand all over in my rust, which is fine because it's mostly dry, but sorry, I know my head's on camera there, but hard to see. There we go. All pockets of orange here and there. The rusting is worst and freshest, because orange rust is fresh rust. So we're going to put on like the top of these pipes or whatever, in the very, very edges. On the tops of things. Just little bits here and there, but not too much. And mostly with a stippling action, because we mostly want to, well, A, texture, again. And B, we don't want brush strokes of orange, because that just looks like brush strokes. So We stipple and poke. Over here. Do a lot of stipple poking over here. And doing this while it's still wet, so it'll really blend with these rusty browns we've got going. There we go. Perfect. I love it. I love it, I love it, I love it. Some in there, some in there. Yeah, again, in the pipes. No one's getting down to clean those, right? Same thing with what we'll do here is we'll put them in there and then use our finger to wipe the tops off so it's only inside the little vents. Okay, where else? I'm flipping this around rather than moving my hand around because that way I won't what you can do is you can kind of like mix your bright rust with the brown rust. Just get a nice rusty spill here. There we go. I'm actually not going to put any over here because that doesn't look like rust, right? That looks like a different kind of spill. Now, a spill of any kind can still cause rust, because rust isn't just water, rust is any oxidation. But you can tell rust is, you know, time. So if you don't rust it, it means it's not that old. We'll get some more. I feel like some of these can be a little mixed a little bit better. A little less harsh of a transition. Yeah, what you're trying to avoid is the where you just have like right here, which is what I did right here, which I'm going to fix right now, which is where it's orange and then it just stops. So you can do that by desaturating a little bit and then using your rusty brown orange to kind of, oh, you're almost wet blending, right? In fact, really, that's what you are doing. You're wet blending the edges. Okay. I think now we need to let that dry fully before we make any kind of full decision. But I think that's looking like I want it to look. You also got to let it dry fully just because those oranges really do like shatter out until they dry down. Really grab your eye, which is fine if that's what you want, but if it's not, well, that's when you can. And I might come back later, and so for example, I don't like this rust right here in the middle, so I'm going to put a streak of the brown rust over it. I'm still fishy about this one right here. Kind of want to connect it to our existing grime over here. Here we go. Okay, I like that a little bit better, yeah. And then the orange kind of going back. You know, it's like a line of oxidization, right? And, you know, this is what we're doing. We're picking at it. We're futzing. We're playing with it until we get it to a place where we like it. And over here, like that one's a little too bright for me, so I'm going to kind of dial it back by putting just a little bit of transparent brown, but also still mixing in my orange with it because I do like that orange. There we go. So now it's kind of almost like a little canker sore there, ugh, which is gross, but yeah, fitting for what we're doing. These oranges over here are still too poppy in my opinion, so I'm going to completely cover these with the brown rust. And you know, it's funny, like these bottles that I have are ancient, right? These are very, very old Vallejo Game Effects bottles. I'm sure there's tons of other rust and effects that I'm just not playing with, but because I haven't used these up. So I do wonder sometimes if I'm, you know, missing out on some cool things. I know there's Dirty Down. I've never really gotten along with Dirty Down just because of the price. It's very expensive. So here's another great example. In the light, I realized that this one had pigments on it, which I don't want because they don't look like pigment should. So I'm going to take a wet brush and just scoop those away. That's a good lesson on being more careful with your pigments because they will pervade everything you do if you're not careful. There we go. All right. On to the other one. Okay, so this baby, this is where we'd put the dry rust down first. Now we're going to put the wet rust, yeah, the dry rust down first. Now we're going to put the wet rust on top of it. And then we'll put down our contrast paints. Nope, come on. That one we're going to have to blend in. I can look right there and say it, or see it. Same thing. So yeah, you can kind of approach this two different ways. You can kind of build up to brighter colors, or you can start with the brighter colors and then work on blending them down. I'm kind of taking both approaches here. I think that I like the former better. I think I like starting with darkers and then building my way up. But either way, you're going to have to end up going back into and blending in the brighter colors. Okay. Had my second Psyker Delock match day and got actually demolished. Oof, that's no fun. I'm sorry. I hope it was fun besides that. Okay. Back to the contrast paints. Actually, I think we're going to use this to kind of focus in. Kind of use this wash to doing it down here off camera first so you guys can't see me, haha, so I can tell whether it's going to work or not. Because this ostensibly being a rust wash should be able to, like, bridge the gap. And it kind of is. Kind of, not really. That's okay. Okay. I can see I got some in there, so let's, yeah, fix that. I rolled other than 1s and 2s for ranged attack first time on turn 4. Ouch. Well, yeah, and that is at the end of the day. If it's a dice game, the dice are going to determine what kind of day you have above everything else. Okay, let's wash this out. Yeah. Well, so far I've learned that starting with the start with the contrast paints, then go to the rusts is my lesson taken from this today, which is completely fine. We don't know until we try. Send them to dice jail. Noctical got a skull from her first injury roll, and same for my leader. Oh, of course. That's how it always happens, right? Some more goopy rust here. Yeah. Um. Okay. Yeah, more darkness on that one will be good. There we go. And we'll... So yeah, once this rust wash, once it dries, is really light. It really doesn't stick around, which is actually kind of a good thing. Okay. Still new to painting and Necromunda in general, but the Army Painter rusts work for me really well. Yeah, I have them right here. The only reason I'm not using them is because I wanna use up these ones I've had for literally a decade, right? Like I've had these Vallejo ones, and you don't use a lot at once. So I've got 3 types of Army Painter rust over here that I really probably should be trying out just to see what they do. Maybe I'll do that in the next tile, huh? But yeah, I just haven't used them much because I've got these, and I just haven't used these enough. But it is possible that like the age of these is actually decreasing their quality, which I should be worried about. But oh well, it's rust, right? Can't worry too much. Well, you can't worry too much if you do what I just did, which is futz with it so much that you ruin, you tear everything up, which I shouldn't do. So, okay, Yeah, you just... Okay. Get more rust wash on this one around here. Yeah, blend that together. Oh, yeah, okay, I see the problem. Okay, yeah, I just need to... I'm being impatient and I'm paying for it. So... You just let this one dry and come back to it. All right, let's take a look at the other one. Okay, there we go. See, this looks a little bit better because I was a little more patient. The last thing we're going to do is take some of our rust wash and tie these pots together. There we go. Mm. No, that needs more blending in. Oops, where'd my skeleton horde? The snake bite leather. There we go. There we go. All right, so we're gonna cover all these up. I've got a better idea. But we're gonna let them fully dry, so I think we're gonna move on to 2 different tiles now. What the heck happened there? Oh, my hand is what happened there. Oops, wrong one. All right. Put you away. Make sure you don't put it on top of the other one. Let you guys fully dry. Let's pull out another one and go back to where we started. The brown. I'm going to get a drink real quick because it's been an hour. All right. And now back to the stipple with our friend Mornfang Brown. Sorry, Rhinoxide. Not Mornfang. I'm gonna swap out my palettes here just because I don't want to accidentally stipple a bunch of orange everywhere, because that would be kind of disastrous. All right, get some of that. some Rhinox hide. There you go. That's what you're looking for there. So let's get all the edges of everything here. Kind of work our way out. Sorry. Oh no, absolutely not. Never apologize for having to do real life stuff. This is just a hobby hangout. We're not doing important work here. Well, I mean, we're doing important work. Hobbying is important, but, you know, nothing life-threatening here, right? Okay. Yep, working off camera again, because it's down here. You guys can't see. No, you don't want that smearing effect. You want the... So then I gotta switch to a better part of the sponge, because it's not working out. Which is fine. I've got lots of sponge. No, this isn't working. Man, today's a frustrating day, huh? There we go. All right, well, let's just paint out the old-fashioned way, because it's not working. I had to find another replacement for Rhinox hide, but I wish I could, because I hate the pots so much. Lord, do I hate them. Okay, stipple there, stipple there. Mostly on the upper raised edges here, but in some of the middle panels, yeah. Okay. You're stippled up. I do kind of wonder could I just use the whole darn big brush? Like, just... I don't know, that might be a disaster. I guess let's try it, because, you know, the difference between a genius and a disaster is the execution. Hmm. Yeah, kind of a... Well, actually, seems to kind of be working. It's got to hold it appropriately. Nope, that's what I was worried about. That's okay, we'll mask that by just building up a big old splotch there. So yeah, if these weren't chisel-tipped, that would work, but the fact they're chisel-tipped means it collects on that chisel. So it doesn't quite work out. However, you can kind of... smooth it out with some backup stipples. Now, this one's a little different because this one is one of the few ones where one of these is bare. So I need to actually make sure I paint it appropriately. I can say one for one thing, the painting handle doesn't help. This is one of those things where I wish I bought more metal minis that came with that foam, because that foam from the metal mini packaging is actually perfect for this. I just don't buy enough metal minis to have any anymore. Oop. Butterfingers. Mm. Okay. Can I pop this whole thing off? Interesting. And just kind of use it like that. Let's try that. Although if I'm doing that, I can just make these smaller. There we go. That's what we wanted the whole time. Okay, so all I had to do was tear apart these sponges. Because that gets you some nice... Yeah, that's the kind of sponge weathering we're looking for. Proper tools and all that. Sorry, I can't see because the glare of my lights actually is kind of funny. There we go. All right, let's get another one. Maybe we'll do 3 tiles. There we go. All right, yeah, liking this. All right, so verdict: hardware store sponge brushes, fine. Ignore the brush part. Tear them apart. Cannibalize them horribly for your... And then they make great sponge weathering brushes. There we go. Perfect. What is that texture on top of the bottle there? Is it a miniature texture palette? These? This? Yeah, these are little 3D printed. Here's one that's not painted yet. 3D printed, basically texture palettes. I found these ones I found free on Thingiverse. The squid ones are from Victoria Miniatures. It's just so, especially for contrast paints, I like being able to see how it'll actually look on whatever I put it on. They're not perfect. You gotta size them correctly, and then you gotta glue them down, and then of course you gotta prime them and paint them. But I find it does help me a lot with indecisiveness of picking a contrast paint, because I can go, oh, I know what this will look like. Because sometimes what's in the bottle doesn't look like what it actually looks like on your palette. Let's just keep going. I've got sponge, I've got Rhinox hide. Just keep going. Just keep stippling. Stipple gods. Stipple for the stipple gods. Stab for the stab the throne. Wait. That's just corn again, isn't it? Dang it. Ugh. I hate GW paint bottles. Pots, I mean, because they suck a lot. And they don't close. And that's why I'm going to find another... There's got to be a army painter or AK paint that covers the niche of Rhinox hide without the bollocks of GW paint pots, because I'm really done with it. There we go. Lots of sponging, sponging. Sponge till we fall over. Well, not really. Sponge until about 3 o'clock, because then I gotta go record. God, they do. Yeah, just... Ugh. Alright, hello, Battleshock's favorite nerdling. Still need to paint a nerdling one of these days. Painted a couple Nurgle adjacent things, but never painted a Nurgling. I might, this is not a guarantee, I might paint, because I got if you saw on the Discord, through a series of weird events, I was given a Saturdyne box. Krill Warm Brown? Yeah, that's definitely, so Warm Brown is more of a, like a Morn Thing brown, and that is what I use for that. I've got some, where's my Warm Brown? Warm Brown's great, I've got it. Sorry, no, I'm blocking the camera. There we go. This stuff. This is more of a, well, I guess I can put it on my palette and see. This is more like of a Morn Thing brown equivalent. Yeah, which is great, and I don't buy Morn Thing brown anymore because that's what I use instead. But the Rhinox hide has this purplish to it, which I like a little better for weathering for this exact purpose, and pretty much only this purpose, if we're being very honest. It's kind of like the only thing I use this for. You can use a warmer brown for this, though. And in fact, it's not a bad idea. It'll come out, it'll look different in the end. And you just have to, you know, modify your processes accordingly. To me, Rhinox hide really captures just that off-brown weirdness that kind of like this kind of stuff really ends up with, you know. However, the Warm Brown is fantastic, and it's almost kind of a shame that's in a signature series. I mean, I guess at this point it doesn't matter. You can kind of get all of them for anything, right? But I would say it's kind of a shame if it's hard to find, but I don't think it is for most people. That being said, so for example, we take our Warm Brown here, spread it out so it's accessible to our sponge. Spun it up. You could absolutely use this instead. See? It's just going to give you a little bit lighter. And in fact, if I want to, and I could do this, and I might do this, you can mix them. I'm trying to finish this project while I'm still alive, so I'm probably not going to take that extra step, but I do also think if you were weathering brighter colored things, that the Warm Brown or Morn Fang Brown, or whatever you want to call it, might be a little more on theme. All right. Well, you know, we've got two more, so let's just keep going. At this point, I'm just using up this Rhinox hide bottle almost out of spite. I wonder if my Brigadine Brown is, but no, see, it's more of a dead brown. It's not quite the same. What about, no, it's coal black, Josh. That's not going to work. What about mahogany? I mean, mahogany is probably the closest. Yeah, burnt sienna is not going to be it. There's probably I have not mined extensively through. Banshee Brown's close. In fact, Banshee Brown is very close. I've not mined extensively through AK Interactive's stuff. So I don't usually buy their stuff very much, but they do have good paints. And Bootstrap Brown. Oh, I might try this Banshee Brown. It's just a little bit not quite dark. But anyway, yeah, I've not mined every single paint line and gone, well, there's no replacement for Rhinox hide. It's just I have not looked in places where I have found one yet. Doesn't mean they don't exist. And what I probably will do after I use up this Rhinox hide is just switch my workflow for this kind of thing to using a lighter brown. Because I'm just, ugh. It's good paint. The paint itself is great. I just really hate the bottles. And yes, you could repot them, but I don't want to spend that time. I feel like I'm rewarding bad behavior if I do that. Alright. You've got two more tiles, so let's just go ahead and keep going. Check Brigadine Brown. I do have Brigadine Brown. It's a little more too dead. So Brigadine Brown, if you look at the colors, I'll put them on the palette. Brigadine Brown is pretty close but it's a little, it lacks some of that richness that the Rhinox hide has, which is coming from the purplish color. Let's see what's the sponge we're using. So, again, you could use it. I'm being intensely, obstinately picky about something that, at the end of the day, probably really do not need to be picky about, because it's a weathering sponge brown, right? And that's why, at the end of the day, I'm not going to buy another bottle of Rhinox. Even if something else doesn't exactly match what it was, screw it, I'm not buying another one. I will, I'll make something else work. Time is money, and we give GW too much money? Yeah. Now, you can see here I really messed up these stripes when I did them. So I am really compensating for that by perhaps over-sponging, but that's fine. Yeah, so far Banshee is my favorite, and I will probably, in fact, I might just sneakily put down some Banshee Brown right here. See what happens. Again, a little lighter, but it does at least have that life tone to it, you know? Which is weird, because we're talking about mechanical things. But it is a fair bit lighter, but... yeah, I mean, it's different. Ooh, actually, you know what? I might like this more just because it's, well, I'll need to see how it actually dries down, because, like all acrylic paints, it will dry down. And yeah, I'm gonna use up the Rhinox just because I have the Rhinox. You know, same thing I'm using. Reason I'm using these up just because I have them. And it is nice to be consistent within a project, right? Even if somebody doesn't know that you changed paint through, it can kind of kind of pop through to that, like, oh, something's weird there. Did they change something halfway through? Okay, last one. Although I should probably, if I want to talk about using up things, instead of using this Vallejo Orange Rusty thing, I should probably go work on using up my Riser Rust dry brush paint, because that's been sitting there for a decade, and I've not used it yet. Yeah, it's a little brighter. End of the day, it's probably gonna give you mostly the same effect. Brigadine, on the other hand, it's on my palette, I'm just gonna use it, because what the heck, why not? Well, the Warden is telling me to go back to work. Have a good weekend. Hey, you too, Battleshock. I'm gonna do that later. In fact, I will be doing that after this. We go feed all our chickens. Gotta record first, then feed, then do a bunch of other crap. Yeah, Brigadine, on the other hand, I am not excited about Brigadine. Brigadine brand is not a bad color, by the way. It's a good color. It's just absolutely not what I'm looking for this. All right, let's get one last round of Rhinox hide on here. Just enough to carry us through the day. And then I'm half tempted to just throw this paint bottle away because I'm not using it. This is the last of the tiles. No, technically I do have my own personal tiles I should work on with that too. And I'm loath to throw away paint, even if I don't like it. Which is why I have, you know, bottles and bottles and bottles of Games Workshop paint, even though I don't really use them anymore because the pot's annoying me. I still have tons of them because I'm loath to just throw it away. And nobody wants half-open paint. I gave all my sealed ones away to a friend who actually uses it. And he uses it very well. It's actually better painted than me. So it's not like Games Workshop paint is bad paint. I just don't like the bottles. Yeah. Personal taste. Alright, we're almost done here. Oops. There we go. Nope. Too hard, too hard. That's okay, we'll buff that out later with some pigments and washes. Just need a little more. Just a little more. Give me a little more. There we go. Okay. So, all of our tiles are now stippled. Let's go back to you. Boop! Alright, so, what we're going to do here is re-darken these in the places where I just didn't do a great job of doing that. We're actually going to use some of our Gargax sewer for that. Move, normal palette. We've got a few of these spots where it just, unfortunately, I didn't do a very good job of feathering it out, so it looks like tide marks, and that's doesn't matter if that's what it would look like. I'm installing vinyl flooring while wishing I was doing game tiles, so it's kind of like tile. You're doing tiles, just not game tiles. Yeah. IRL Zone Mortalis. There we go. We're going to kind of feather these out a little bit. And then once they fully dry, we'll dry brush them with the orange. Which unfortunately will not be on this stream because they were not going to fully dry in the next 10 minutes, but... Okay. Yeah, and then our dry brushing will be what equalizes those. Same thing with here. Well, this one I'm not too worried about. This one's mostly good. I'm just going to kind of go through and cover up those few spots. I'd kind of forgotten that last time I used this orange paint, or this orange rust paint, I'd really kind of leaned towards dry brushing it on because it's too powerful. Tried joining the Discord from link, and it's saying there's a problem with authenticator from owner? From site owner? Well, site owner isn't us. That's Discord. One second. I can look into that while we're waiting for this to dry. Doobie-doobie-doobie-doobie-doop. Okay, go to YouTube. Go to Battle Tome. I'm just clicking on one of our random videos. Clicky linky Discord. Boop. Images rundown. Open app. I don't know what to tell you. It is working on our end, on my end. So, and I can do it in the browser or in the yeah, I can do it on browser or in app. So that might be a you issue. Sorry, because yeah, it appears to be working fine on our end. 1-to-1 scale terrain. Yeah. All right. So you can let those fully dry. Just while we're here, let me see, what other effects paints do I have? I've got Grim Rust, Fresh Rust, and just Rust. Okay. Oh, dang it. This is why I was super gluing those on. With the changes in heat, it's getting hot and cold, so all my plastic little toppers are expanding and contracting and popping off, which is very annoying. I have to wash my hands. Looks like I punched a chocolate guy to death. Chocolate rain. Managed to get pigment on my pants. What are these good for? Are they significantly any different? Now, I wish I could find another... I mean, I do have Typhus Corrosion, which I can use as well. And, of course, that's just more like a dark brown paint, so that one's not as... But I do like the texture on it, so... Uh-oh. Safety pin, Coon, where are you? Oops. Oh, I'm going to need a new safety pin, Coon, because I think this one's covered with super glue. Yes. Okay. New safety pin, Coon. Okay. Alright, so that's that one. Where'd my napkin go? Paper towel. Where are you? There. They're very thick, but flow nicely. Well, and with rusts, I actually tend to not mind it being thick because rust itself is kind of thick and chunky. So, I can tell you right off the bat that they are certainly less in-your-face punchy orange than the Vallejo one. So probably actually more what I'm looking for. Because this is just, you know, comically orange. Okay, so... yeah, and they've got grit in there. Yeah, I probably should switch to moving these. And I can, or switch to using these, and I can do that in the middle of a project, because this is, you know... I'm going to be very honest with you, I do not see the difference between... Oh, that's because they're the same. I'm an idiot. No, they're... This is rust from the historical, but if you look on the side, this is the same as fresh rust. So I'm like, why are these two the same? What's the difference? The answer is there isn't one. So... read the size of your bottles, kids. And then Grim Rust here. The way is to sponge them to a metal object to cover and then highlight the edge of the metal paint. Yeah, which is kind of what we end up doing here. And then this one actually has no, wow, why have I been using this for so long? Now I'm kind of annoyed. Now, the dry rust here, I don't have an army painter effect paint for that, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I just don't have it. I don't know if it exists or not. But now I'm kind of annoyed I've been using this because this is way too bright for what I wanted. But I'm stubborn because I want to use this up, right? Let me go over here to Typhus. No, that's Black Templar. There we go. I knocked over my cheese puffs. This is a brand new bottle of Typhus Corrosion. Gloriously donated by Valhalla Melta after my old one. Yeah! Oh, that needs mixing. Incoming. I'm not saying there's no way I'd ever use this for anything. I've been using it for that to good effect, but... Even this is still, I mean, that's better than this stuff, which is just a very liquidy paint. It's kind of functionally a brown paint with no texture to it. Well, moral of the story is, don't cling to old things just because you have them. Especially if you've already, like, if this is, if I hadn't bought the new stuff, then why would I, then I would understand still using this, but I probably should have stopped using this when I bought the new stuff. Now, me being me, I'm still not going to throw these away. Because, hey, you never know what might be handy. But, boy, that does... Well, I'm going to put these off to the side, because I have a feeling those are going to get used. But that is it from me for today. Or a couple minutes early, but I've got to go record a Sunday rundown and figure out how to do it alone. Might not have the intro and outro today, because Mitchell's not around, and I don't think I can make it down to the studio. Thank you for joining me so much. I hope you had a great day, or a great time. Or at least a relaxing time if you're watching from the VODs. Hope you have a good day. Stay cool if you're trying to stay cool. Stay warm if you're trying to stay warm if you're in the southern hemisphere. I will see you later this week. We'll stream again on Thursday. Keep your eye out for more stuff that we'll be releasing this week. And I hope you all have a fantastic day. Bye-bye.